Hello and welcome to the Gospel Teachings of RAK. Today we are going to talk about perishing from among the people. Exodus chapter 12, verse 15. Perish out of Israel if you eat leavened bread during the days of unleavened bread. In Exodus chapter 12, verse 19, anyone who eats leavened bread during days of unleavened bread shall perish out of the assembly of Israel. Exodus chapter 31, verse 14. He that does any work on the Sabbath shall perish out of the midst of his people. He that shall profane it shall be put to death. Leviticus chapter 7, verse 27. He that eats blood shall perish from among the people. Leviticus chapter 17, verse 4. He who makes an offering not at the door of the tabernacle shall perish from the midst of his people. Leviticus chapter 18, verse 29. He who does any of the sexual immorality mentioned in this chapter shall perish from the midst of his people. Leviticus chapter 19, verse 8. You must eat the peace offering in 2 days, or if you profane it, you shall perish from among your people. Leviticus chapter 3, verse 29. He that does not fast on the day of atonement shall perish from among his people. 23:30. He who does any work on this day, God will destroy from among his people. Leviticus chapter 26, verse 38. He who does not keep my laws shall perish among the Gentiles, and an enemy's land shall consume you. Numbers chapter 19, verse 13. He who touches a corpse and is not sprinkled with the water of expiation shall profane the tabernacle and shall perish out of Israel. And that has to do with cleanliness and touching corpses. And we know even today that that's not something that we should do, and that we have certain people that do that the right way. Numbers chapter 19, verse 20. He who goes into the tent of a dead man shall be cleansed with the waters of expiation. If not, he shall perish out of the midst of the church. Deuteronomy chapter 2, verse 15. All the men of Exodus from Egypt that were old enough to fight perished, were consumed out of the midst of the camp before entering the promised land. Deuteronomy chapter 29, verses 18 and 20 and 21. Lest perhaps there should be among you a man or a woman, a family or a tribe, whose heart is turned away from this day, from the Lord our God, to go and serve the gods of those nations, and there should be among you a root bringing forth gall and bitterness, and the Lord should not forgive him, and utterly destroy him out of all the tribes of Israel, according to the curses that are contained in the book of this law and covenant. Book of Zechariah, chapter 12, verses 9 through 14. It shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem, and I will pour out upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of prayers, and they shall look upon me whom they have pierced, speaking of Jesus, and they shall mourn for him as one mourns for an only son, and they shall grieve over him as the manner is to grieve for the death of the firstborn. In that day there shall be a great lamentation in Jerusalem, like the lamentation of Adreman in the plain of Megiddon. And the land shall mourn, families and families apart, the families of the house of David apart, and their women apart, the families of the house of Nathan apart, and their women apart, the families of the house of Levi apart, and their women apart, the families of Simei apart, and their women apart, all the rest of the families and families apart, and their women apart. So this is going into basically the law, a lot of the law, and that if you don't follow it, you will perish from among your people, which in essence is dying because of sin. And then in Zechariah here, it's basically going into how Jesus became some of that for us, and that he is the one that will be coming and bringing grace, and we will be looking upon him who we have pierced in the day that he comes back. But until then, we are to keep his holy days, we are to keep these feasts, these laws that God gave for us. If not, we will perish from among our people and from this land. I hope you take this all and think on it, pray on it. Thanks again for all the recent support, and I hope you all have a blessed day.